Diggers, let's do a race recap. A couple weeks ago, I went to Coastal Plains Dragway in Jacksonville, North Carolina. 252 list guys were doing their small tire grudge type race and invited the bracket racers to come to their day at the track as well and run a bracket race alongside their other type of racing, which was cool. It was a great event and I had a lot of fun and made it to the final. But I lost in the final because the car rolled back out of the beam on the starting line, turned off my stage beam, and disqualified me with a LB3A, a left before 3 amber, which means you've left the starting line before the tree's activated. So automatic red light right there. My day was done. Didn't even get to make a race of it, which is not how I wanted to end that day, of course, in the final. But did feel really good to get to a final round. It had been a while, few years since I'd been in a final with this car. I've been in a total up to that point of 5 finals. So that was the 6th final I was in. I still couldn't get a win. It was just gnawing at me like, am I ever going to win one of these? I just can't seem to close the deal. So here just this past weekend, Jacksonville, North Carolina, Coastal Plains Dragway, they're having their first points race, WDRA points race of the season. And so I figured, well, let's go hit that up. We did pretty good 2 weeks ago. Let's see how well we can do again. And turns out we did pretty darn well. Back to the final and got it done this time. Finally, a win. Man, I've been chasing that for a long time. Because I run street cars and stuff for many years before running the dragster. I've been running the dragster now for a few years. And being in, finals, just not being able to get it done was just like that monkey is on your back. You can do it, and you just haven't. Things keep coming up, and so can't tell you how good it felt to finally get that first win. So first thing is, you got to get to the track. Sometimes that's an adventure and a win in itself just to get to the track. And thankfully, it was easy for us. It's only about an hour and a half drive for us to get up to Jacksonville from where we live in North Carolina. Left about 5 in the afternoon with the RV and trailer and got up there about 6:30. But when I got up there, I happened to glance down at my trailer tires as I'm chalking them to unhook the trailer. And I noticed the front left tire is like about ready to blow. Thankfully, it didn't happen on the highway. I didn't have to be on the side of the highway changing a blown trailer tire, but it was ready to go. So thankfully, caught it there. And, Friday, we're up there Friday evening, and I wasn't going to test or anything. So I was like, well, I'll just change the tire now. It was a good time. There's nothing going on. We'll watch some of the people make time runs. So I get the tire change, but no sooner did I get the trailer unhooked that somebody had crashed on the track doing test and tune. They had sort of come across the track, I guess, in a way enough to where they sort of T-boned into the wall at about 400 foot. And they took out about 15 to 20 feet of the cinder block wall that makes up the retaining wall of the right lane. And so at that point, they had to cancel test and tune for the night because you can't race with a gaping hole in the wall. That's a safety issue and just can't have it. So shout out to the Coastal Plains crew because they got right after it and spent the night getting things ready to rebuild that wall so that we could race on Saturday. So, talk about dedication to it and, making sure we could have a race on Saturday. And they had a pallet of cinder blocks there that night. And then the next morning they were starting to lay them down, and we weren't supposed to start racing, making time runs till like 1. And by then they had a wall for us and we were ready to go by 1 o'clock or maybe just a little after. So awesome. Big thanks to the Coastal Plains crew for getting that fixed so we could race on Saturday. So time run number 1 comes up and the car does not run what it should. 522 is not what the car should run. It did that because it shook the tire really bad, and it shook it so bad it shook it into high gear almost immediately after I left the line. And so when it does that, it doesn't run what it's supposed to. And so that had me perplexed because I pretty much ran the same setup I did 2 weeks ago. What much changed? Not much. Conditions-wise, not much. But the track, obviously, the prep different. So I needed to adjust for that. Took about a half pound of air out the tire for the next time run. That seemed to cure it. Went 0-4 with a 7, which is what it should run. And we were back in business. Felt pretty good with that. 24 light, I wasn't too concerned about that. At that point, I still was like, I'm not going to really mess with my box. I had taken a little out because I was red on the first one. But I decided I'll put it back into where it was for my delay box, and we'll be probably just fine like we were last week. Let's go with that. So we get to round number 1, and I decided to put a 505 on the car, and my opponent was dialed 634, and thankfully they went red only by 4 thou. That's not much. That hurts when you do that. Sure, only red by a little bit, and they ran just like a thou under their dial. So they were on. Their setup was real close, and they could buy back. It was only round 1, so you could buy back round 1 and 2 at Coastal Plains. So they could keep going, but we got a win. Didn't have to buy back round 1. That was great, and it went 0-4 with a 7 again, back to back, which was cool. That just made me feel great that the car was right there. Round 2 comes up. This gets a little weird. So, I'd taken air out of the tire, made it happy, wasn't shaking anymore. Round 2 comes up. We're about ready to run. Somebody hits the wall again, this time down in the shutdown on the left side. They didn't take it out, so it wasn't like we had to stop racing because there was no wall issue again. But took them a little bit of time to get that car off the track, and so we were just waiting for a little bit. Car got a little cooler. So I tried to get it warmed back up when it was time for us to race. And also, I was still running my half pound less air in the tire at this point. But the track at that point was starting maybe to cool. And after not running cars on it for a little bit, also maybe cooling. Thought maybe that would still give it bite or more bite. But what ended up happening here is you can see the 60-foot time goes away. And I was all in it and only ran 508. With a 4, and I think I was spinning the tire a ton. I got back from that run and saw a lot of feathering right on the edge of the tires, which told me it was just running right on the itty-bitty edges of the tire, and that just equates to a lot of spin. So all in it, only could run a 508, but thankfully I had a near perfect light, as you can see, 000 with a 9.8. That's real close to perfect, and I needed every bit of that because I was only able to get around my opponent and get to the finish line first by 9/10,000ths of a second, which equates to about 4 inches. So super close race. Also, a little side note, got back from that run, did not have reverse. I got back to the trailer, and the way I pull into my spot, the trailer, I need to back up. And I couldn't back up. And I was like, what's going on? Found out that the button, I knew it was something with the button related to the button, because when I would try to push the button, I would get nothing, but it wasn't showing. If you run a Pro Cube, the little light will activate to show on that your trans brake's been pushed. The little red light comes on, or yellow, I forget, but shows you the trans brake's been pushed. That's not even coming on. So I knew, well, is the button bad? Which I didn't have. I don't have a spare button, so I need to pick up a button. I should have a spare. But I thought if the button's bad, worst case scenario is I can remove my burnout button and put the burnout button as my trans brake button. It's a momentary. It would work. It would have been the only thing I could have really done. But what happened was the wire that comes into the bottom of my Pro Cube had come out of the connection, and I don't know if it shorted and burned it out. It didn't look like it, but it had come unconnected from the connector somehow, and it could have been from the shake earlier on my time run, and it finally let loose. Either way, I got really lucky that it didn't let loose up there when I was going to run, and otherwise I would have been no reverse, no trans brake. I would have been done. So just a whole bunch of luck on that one all the way around. Crimped a new connection, back in business with a trans brake, good to go for round number 3. Get up there, round number 3, 14 light to my opponent's 23. I was on my 505 again. I had put more air back in the tire so we get rid of the spinning issue. and that seemed to be fine. It didn't start shaking again, which I was happy about. Car ran dead 3, and with a 14 light, I was able to take a 16th stripe, so that was a good round for me. On to round number 4, and I had a 009 to my opponent's 37, which was great. I caught them, early, gave it a bunch of rips, and still was ahead by 29. Then round number 5, still on my 05, just left it there the whole night. This was my worst light of the night, 36. And I know why, I think, on this one. This one I was bumping in, and it was one of those things where you're like bumping into the light, and you just bump in and you like take too much. And I thought at that point, I was like, oh no, I bumped in too far. I'm going to go red. And just that little mental break in your head is enough to, even though you're not like really trying, like I'm going to react slower, I think something subconsciously makes you think I should react a little slower to this because I bumped in too far and I don't want to be red. Like somewhere that's going through your brain. And so I knew when I let go, and it wasn't a good light. Thankfully, my opponent was 34. So, I mean, we were only 2 thou difference. So it was real coin flip on the starting line. No one really had a great advantage there. And thankfully, the car went 505 with a 4. So I was dead 4. And my opponent was in front. And I could see they took the stripe, but they broke it out by 4 thou, and I was behind by 10, so I got the win on that because they broke it out. Now on to round number 6. Now we are down to 8 cars, and at 8 cars they put you on a ladder, so they tell you who you're going to run. And in this case, I got paired up with a dragster who was faster than me. This was the only race I had where somebody was giving me the head start. But this was cool because it was a close dial. They were 492 to my 505. So I knew I like those close dial-ins because when you leave the starting line, you can really get a better sense of your light to their light. So I could tell I had a better light, but just barely. I thought, okay, I left good. I left on them. And watching them the whole way, I could see they're not catching me. Just the pace of it, I could tell I'm in front. This is good. And I was confident in my dial. So, I was able to really stay in it and not give up the stripe. And they had a great run. A 10 light with a dead on your dial. That's awesome. That wins races all day. But thankfully I had an 05 light, dead 3, 8-pack, and 2 thou stripe. I mean, you can't see that. That was awesome to be able to get that one. But that was a really close one to get there by just 2 thou. Then we're on to the semis. Tough customer here. They had 608 dial to my 05. I was 19 to their 26, so I could see that I was catching them and was able to give that a rip and a tap of the brake and take a 12 stripe. That was a good run. I was really happy with that. So on to a final. And after winning the semis, I mean, I was just pumped, super pumped because, as I told Liam, I can't believe we're back-to-back finals from last race to this race. And now here's a chance of getting a second chance. Like the whole thing is like, how many second chances do you get? Here's a second chance, the very next race, back in a final, this time to make a race of it and not lose out because you're backing out of the beam. So, get up there, I lose the coin flip, so my opponent puts me in the right lane. I was trying to run the same lane all night to stay consistent, but I wasn't too concerned about it. Left lane, right lane, there's not a whole lot of difference at Coastal, so okay, we'll run the right lane, no biggie. And I was 35 to their 69, which was all I needed to see. I'm catching them, no problem. A lift and a tap of the brake, and got there first by 21 and got the win. Finally, after so many times of getting down to final rounds, not getting it done, finally got it done. Pretty darn good day at the races. So thanks everybody for watching. If you have any questions or comments on this, about any of this stuff I'm talking about, certainly hit me up and let me know, and I can try to explain stuff better. And thanks so much for watching, and everybody who's helped out, Midwest Digger with his advice on the transmission stuff, and of course my dad, West Coast Digger, on the transmission stuff as well, and just the encouragement that they've all given me to do this. It's been great, and really the biggest help was my son Liam there, just by my side the whole weekend, helping me call shots on the car. Was a great crew chief, and I couldn't have done it without him. And that's what made the whole thing the most special, was that he was there with me in the winner's circle. That meant everything, more than the win. So that was the best. So, all right, on to the next one. Hopefully we can keep this momentum going. Thanks for watching.